Okay, so we're going to cover our next section in our properties editor, and we're going to be looking at the mesh data. This is where it'll keep track of vertices and how all these things orient in space, etc. We're going to be looking just at vertex groups and shape keys. And so I'm going to put in an edge loop here. I'm going to just split that down the side. And I'm going to right click, holding shift down to add to my selection for those. I'm going to split these edges by going to where it says mesh, going up to where it says edge, wherever edge may be on here. There we are, edges. And I'm going to go and click on where it says edge split. And now if I switch to face mode here just for the moment, I can actually split those that way back and forth. Okay? And so I'm going to go and I'm going to change back to my vertices. So I'm going to do Control Tab, and I'm going to select Vertex, and then we're going to go over to where it says Vertex Groups. And first of all, I'm going to select A twice to deselect and then to select everything. I'm going to add a vertex group. This one I'm going to double click in here, and I'm going to type all vertices. Just a handy way to make sure I can get all of them if I want for whatever reason. I'm going to click Assign, and then I'm going to add another group. And on this one, I'm going to actually switch to face mode, select just this face, and then I'm going to click off of that to vertex. I can do Control Tab as well. This way I just make sure that I don't accidentally grab the vertices that are connected to this bottom face, just that top face. And so I'm going to say, I'm going to rename this one to top. And usually you want to do enough that you kind of recognize what your group is supposed to be. And I'm going to say Assign. And then I'm going to add another one. And we're going to go down to the bottom face. Switch back to that. I'm going to say Assign. And then I'm going to rename it Bottom. And let's do one more. I'm going to switch to face. Do Alt, select on the line here. That selects all the way around. And then I'm going to switch back to vertice. It's just faster to do it that way than to do Shift and click on those, whatever works for you though. I'm going to go and add another group, and we're going to call this one Middle. It doesn't matter if you assign the vertices before or after, although you should be aware of any vertices that you have overlapping each other, just because it can make a big difference as you're working with things. So anyway, I have those different groups. Makes it really, really easy where if I say deselect, so I could go click on all vertices, say select, it'll select all the vertices there. If I go to where it says top and I say deselect, or bottom and say deselect, there we go, deselect, it'll deselect the vertices that are part of those groups. And then if I go to middle and say deselect, that's just the leftover ones that I have, basically. So it's not a bad way to be able to tell if you've excluded any of the vertices in your grouping. Okay, so I'm going to go back to where it says, I'm going to go to all vertices, say deselect. I could also tap A couple times over the viewport. That would work just fine too to deselect. I'm going to go and select the top, and I'm going to add a shape key. And actually it says, okay, so when I go to press on, it says add shape key to object, but it's not letting me do that. And part of that I think is if I actually tab out, now I can have a shape key. So I'm going to hit plus, and this one's by default is called bias, so we're not going to rename that one, we want to leave it that way. I'm going to hit plus again, And so in this one it says key 1 now, and I'm going to tab in first, and I think actually I don't need to really do anything with that there, but if I go and hit tab again, and then I'm going to take this number and put 1, and you'll notice that here you can slide the value, so 1 is maximum, and I'm going to tab in again, and now I'm going to edit what this would look like at 1. So I'm going to take this, and I didn't need to really do the vertex groups, although if I'm doing an armature you'd need vertex groups. It'll make its own if you're doing like a skeleton structure or something like that. I'm going to move those down like so. I'm also going to fill those. So I'm going to select this edge, I'm going to hit F. By filling those, I'm not actually adding any vertices, I'm just connecting the vertices. So I'm really not changing the vertex data, but I am adding more faces to the mesh. Okay, so that's 1. I'm going to tab out. Now I have this slider, so I'm in object mode, but as I slide the slider, I have it opening. This will deform very unrealistically. You can also deform unrealistically using a what's called an armature, which we'll get into in a later video, but basically it's a skeletal structure for something. So you can make it bend in ways that it really wouldn't for a person or an animal or whatever. But that said, this works very differently than other ones. I'm going to add another shape key. So right now it's got that as its data. I'm going to turn it up to 1, and I'm going to tab into it, and then I'm going to use this to select the middle vertices. So I'm just going to say select. Great way to group things that you're going to constantly want to reference. And I'm going to do S, Shift Y. Okay, so Shift Y. And I'm going to pull it out like so. And then I'm going to tab out. And now what I can do is I can adjust this shape key, and I can click on this one and adjust this shape key. And so you can get some basic things that you're doing. If I wanted to, I could animate these keys. I'm going to start everything down here, and let's say that if I just hit don't see, so I'm going to lower that down, and I'm going to go to make sure I'm on frame 1. Frame 1 is the start of my animation, and so I'm going to keyframe this by hovering over this value and hitting I. I can hover over the value there as well and hit I too, so I keyframe both those values, and then I'm going to go to about 15 frames, and I'm going to select on key 1, and I'm going to slide it up, and then I'm going to hit I here, and I'm going to hit I on the other one as well. I'll show you why in just a moment. I'm going to go to 30, and then I'm going to take this one down. I'm going to hit I. I over that. There we go. I'm going to not keyframe this one. I'm going to skip to 50, and I'm going to click on our key 2. I'm going to stretch it up. I can rename this, by the way, so I know more what it does, but I'm going to keyframe that there. And then this one I'm going to click on, and we're going to raise that up again. I'm going to do I, and then I'm going to go to 10, and I'm going to go and keyframe this one down here like so, and I'm going to go to here. I'm going to go to make that go up again. I'm going to hit I, and then I'm going to go back down like that, and maybe even shorter on this one, and I'm going to bring it part way. I just kind of messing around with it a little bit, and I'm going to do over here, I'm going to take our other key now. I'm going to lower it down, and I'm going to hit I. Now, the thing is that I didn't take those and really change. I'm going to hit I here. there we go, over the little number there, and that'll set that key value. I'm going to change our animation length to 81. Yeah, okay. And now if I hit play, I have it doing this where it's going back and forth through those vertex keys. And again, this is a way of animating it, but it's not a good way if you're like doing animation of something that, like mechanical, that you want spinning parts or moving mechanisms or things like that. You want to use armatures and possibly some other tools as well. So anyway, that is some things you can do with vertexes and vertex groups. These can also be used to add weights to particles and stuff, which we'll get into in a later video.